Of course, here on The Observer, we want to send condolences to the family of the minister in the Ministry of Education, Lisa Morris-Julien, loved ones, and everyone in the Arima, her community. But there's a lot to discuss, and joining me now is the president of the Fire Service Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me say a pleasant good evening to Mr. Keone Guy. Pleasant good evening to you, comrade.
Oh, pleasant good evening, Mikee K, and thank you for having me on again.
Always a pleasure. A lot has been said, and there's a lot of press releases back and forth, but this evening, of course, the one that was sent out by your association made it quite clear that tragedy will unfortunately strike again. I mean, many of us were like, please, that's the last thing we need to know. But again, we've had you on here before and sympathize with the fact that the working conditions, the lack of resources, the lack of equipment, even protective gear, and it seems as though a lot of the blame game is taking place even before we can have some sort of final report on the incident and what transpired. People are already pointing fingers at us. Was there enough water? Was there a fire tender available? Why was it in close proximity? How come it took them this long? If you can clear the air for us, and again, I don't want to infringe on the investigation, but again, those challenges, and why would you, of course, make it clear that unfortunate tragedy will unfortunately strike again? Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mikey. Well, first of all, we want to extend our heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones of those who've been affected by this tragedy and this tragic incident that occurred yesterday's morning. Our thoughts and prayers remain with those loved and those who are grieving with this tremendous loss. Now, you cited there, Mikey, that the blame game has started already. And of course, the blame game has started, and it started simply because the Fire Service Association has, for the past, I will say, decade, been doing its part to raise the alarm that some special attention must be given to the needs of the fire service. And we have done so from time to time and in various means. We have taken time to write stakeholders at the Ministry of National Security and the Minister of National Security, who is our line minister. We would have met with several chief officers and permanent secretaries during that time. And I must say, unfortunately, we find ourselves where we are this afternoon, where we are once again trying to grasp and understand exactly what transpired and led to the deaths of these three wonderful persons. It was very troubling news for me and my executive, I must say. And it's a burden that all fire officers carry, especially those who responded to the emergency that morning, because there they were, responding to a fire, knowing fairly well that they were under-equipped and undermanned, yet still proceeding and attempting to see whether or not they'd be able to save a life. It is quite unfortunate that we had a loss of 3 lives yesterday morning, and that we have some other members of the family, I believe is the spouse of the late minister, probably fighting for his life.
Yeah, we want to wish
him well as well. But again, it continues, this incident continues to occur. And it's not the first of its kind, so we had to significant that it's likely to happen if immediate action is not taken to resolve our ongoing disputes.
Yeah. What stands out here is that in your press release, it says that it is imperative to acknowledge that the Arima Fire Station's tender number 554 water tanker, vehicle registration number TCL 9610, registered in 2009, was engaged elsewhere at the time of the incident, leaving the first response to be the officers assigned to the Tunapuna Fire Station, which is located some 15 kilometers away from the incident. The crew from the Tunapuna Fire Station had use of number 478 water tanker, registered in 2006, and assigned the registration number TBR 6061. The average age of these two vehicles can be reasonably estimated to be at least 18 years, which makes these vehicles costly to maintain and, of course, difficult when it comes to dealing with frequent breakdowns. Ezekiel Faith and Keone Guy in Rookery Nook in Maraval. And there was this Malcolm Diaz, the senior citizen in Santa Cruz. And one would think that all of these things did not happen in vain, that these people just simply did not lose their lives, and things were not then dealt with differently to make sure that the resources were there. When you're talking about a budget that was allocated in 2024 to 2025 from 11.5 million to 4 million, it was slashed by more than half. The question has to be then, how do they expect fire officers to go out there, do the job of saving the lives of citizens? How?
And I would say it's not for lack of recognition of the problem. I think the government is fully aware of what the challenges are with fire service. For them, however, it doesn't seem to be a priority. And I'm saying seem. You reference the figures that we put out for the draft estimates and the releases that we got for the fire service for the 2023 and 2024 periods. In 2023, actual expenditure for appliances and purchasing of equipment and vehicles, I believe, was estimated at close to $1 million. The government then properly saw the need for additional appliances on the heels of these tragedies that I mentioned there before, and then estimated $11.2 million, or had allocated in their draft estimates $11.2 million towards the purchase of new vehicles. Without much explanation, that figure was revised to $1 million in that year, 2024. This fiscal that we are now into here, the government has, as you mentioned, allocated $4 million. And we included this in the release too. For context, an appliance cost $4.5 million. So to release or to approve our appropriate $4 million means that the fire service will be unable to really purchase much appliances during this fiscal. So the reason we are saying that tragedy will unfortunately strike again is because the time it will take to purchase, procure, order, and have these vehicles here and ready for operational use is in excess of a year and a half. So if the government is not making investment today, it means that for the next year and a half, towards the next 2 years, incidents like these are likely to occur. As I sit here tonight, I have to unfortunately report to the citizens of this country that the majority of the fire stations, again, within the Northern Division, are without appliances. And the Northern Division is the division that stretches from Chaguaramas to Sangre Grande. And in that division, we have 11 fire stations. Presently tonight, without appliances, we have the Chaguaramas, Woodbrook, Belmont, Mover, Santa Cruz, and the Sangre Grande fire station. Now, the Sangre Grande fire station is a particular case because their plant was involved in an accident yesterday. But these other stations that I have called have been without vehicles for an extended period of time. It's almost the norm. So this has been accepted, fire service. It has been accepted by our Minister of National Security, and I must say it has been accepted by the Cabinet. Because after each of these deaths, and after each death was reported in the media, comments were made by some government ministers. Some government ministers were, again, when the Berg family lost their life, they were seen crying and sending out tweets and stuff. They were aware, but that didn't turn into action. So we concluded our statement by saying, this cannot be done here. We cannot allow this to reoccur. We are asking Cabinet, we are asking government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to reconsider their approach to the investment in fire protections within Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, but
we are suggesting,
Mr. Guy, why should officers, why should your association be begging for something that you have a right to? I mean, you have a right to have protective gear. You have a right to be able to have a fire tender so you can respond to save lives. When you're in training, that's what they're training you to do, to go out there and save lives. When you sign on, that's what you signed on for, to respond. That's what you aspire to be, as a fire officer, as a first responder, to get out there and save lives. Now, what is what is the thinking like among officers? Is the morale at an all-time low?
Of course it is. Morale is at an all-time low, and it has been there for an extended period. While the officers remain dedicated, while they continue to report for duty, and again respond to these emergencies in the hope of saving a life, you are reminded after every incident like this, and not all these incidents are reported in the media. But you are reminded after every commercial fire, after every structural fire, after every road traffic accident, after every rescue, after every emergency medical response, officers are reminded of how under-equipped they are and unable to meet the demands of a growing and developing society. Take, for instance, the Arima Fire Station or the Arima area, which is served by one appliance and one fire station. When we consider the geographical size, population density, response time standards, the specific risk involved in Arima, we have highways, we have the bus route, we have manufacturing, we have an industrial estate. Arima should be served by multiple fire stations and multiple appliances.
I agree. I mean, you have.
But that has not been done, and that doesn't seem to be part of the consideration. So when we sent out our release or response to the government's 2024-2025 budget, we called for the government, as it pertains to vehicles, or we recommended rather, that the government develop a defined strategy to outfit all existing fire stations with the requisite equipment necessary to maintain its operational readiness. This was a recommendation we made, and unfortunately then it seemed to have fallen on deaf ears, but we are hopeful, we are optimistic that we may begin to see a turnaround.
Yeah, well, you haven't seen it in quite some time. I mean, you're dealing with fire tenders that are 18 years. I mean, look how they're old. And the Minister of National Security, in your release, you said the Minister of National Security has previously stated that there are no outstanding massive requests from the TTFS for equipment or resources. However, the reality on the ground starkly contradicts this assertion. The TTFS is on the brink of collapse, with many stations lacking suitable trucks and essential personal protective equipment, despite his repeated claims otherwise. I hope that tragedy, unfortunately, will not strike again. And that may be wishful thinking, because your requests, your demands, what's rightfully supposed to be given to you, seems to be falling on deaf ears. Where do we go from here, Mr. Guy?
Where do we go from here? As you said, we can't afford for another tragedy like this to occur. Another tragedy like what occurred in the Rookery Nook incident.
Yeah.
We can't have citizens who are the most vulnerable, which is the children, elderly, and women, continue to die in fires at this rate. We can't continue having hundreds of families displaced by fires annually. Hundreds displaced by fires.
Yeah.
That is what fire so, but that is what Trinidad and Tobago is undergoing at the moment, right?
And you know that's fine for you and myself to make that comment, but the powers that be will have to come to that realization and say, listen, we cannot have this repeated, and we cannot have it going on the way it is. Any closing comments? Go ahead.
closing comments is that I would like to firstly again extend condolences to the family, and I would say to the officers as well who responded on their behalf that they performed to the extent to which the resources that were available to them would have allowed them to extinguish that fire. It was an absolute tragedy, but if not for their involvement, obviously could have been a lot worse. So we are working on the resource. We are on the resource. We are on demand, but officers remain committed to their duty. And again, we need the support of those who have campaigned to lead us. We need their support. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guy. Comrade,
Thank
best
you.
of luck to you, and we stand in solidarity with you and your members.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.